the wheel keep on turning, and the primary keep on burning.
All right. I just let this one go a little longer. I just love this song.
I like the Elvis version, especially when he did it live in concert.
And this one's pretty good too. Minnesota Voters Alliance Live. Thanks so much for joining us, Andy CILEK and Brian Olson. And you like the Elvis one better?
I like to criticize your music selections.
Hey, whenever we get criticized, I blame it on Brian Link because he's not here. So I'm pleased to be joined by Twyla Braze from the Citizen. Explain the name of the group again.
Citizens Council for Health Freedom.
Citizens
Council for Health Freedom.
I got to remember that. I get your emails. You got great emails.
Thank you.
I go, someday my emails are going to look as good as Twyla's. No, but before we get started, though, we were talking. We had a Richie soundbite, and he was talking. He was speaking in front of a group, saying he's speaking to them as out of personal and passionate compassion. Do you know what that means?
No, I think it would be good to ask him what that is. Personal passion, compassion. That's a lot of passion.
Someone said, Suzanne said, it's a lie. And Layla goes, it's double talk.
I think he got his words mixed up. But what he meant to try to clarify is that he was there on a personal basis, is not as the Secretary of State, because he's gotten into so much trouble between.
So he wants their vote.
Between straddling those two fences, so he tried to make it
he's
clear.
On their team,
but actually, what
right?
he did was he just muddied the waters even more.
He just made a disconnect between his office and himself.
Yeah. So he can remind him that he's looking out for them.
Yeah.
So we can get as many ineligible voters as we can, so we can stay in power. All right, Twyla. Well, obviously, healthcare is becoming a big thing. You know, I just got something, and it's kind of interesting that, you know, I knew you were coming on today. Yesterday in the mail, right? I'm trying to avoid all this stuff, like probably most Minnesotans, right? Obamacare and what the heck do we do? I mean, I've tried not to pay too much attention. That's why I'm glad you reached out to me, because I don't want to deal with this stuff, but we're going to have to.
It's unavoidable.
We're going to have to somehow. But I have my own consulting business, and it's a S Corp, and I got a letter in the mail yesterday saying, I mean, I'm the only employee. But as soon as you get to 50 employees, you got to do this, this, and this. And I said, well, I'm not there yet, and I threw it away. Should I have read it?
Well, I think it would be good for you to read it, but the other thing is, who did it come from? Did it come from MNsure, the state of Minnesota?
MNsure, that's what it was.
Was it from MNsure?
Who's MNsure?
MNsure is the Obamacare exchange established in Minnesota. It's the name of that Obamacare exchange.
And that's what you're going to talk to us about today, primarily.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you just give us a rundown how you would start any other type of talk, because I don't even know where to start asking questions.
Well, I think that the public needs to understand that there's something really big happening in healthcare, and right now there's only about 40% of the public who thinks that Obamacare was repealed or doesn't exist anymore, and they're really wrong, because everything is going to change starting on January 1st. Obamacare is one of the reasons why...
January 1st?
January 1st.
Okay.
January 1st is when it becomes implemented in full, the law, the federal law.
When does the extra 3.8% in capital gains get implemented?
Okay,
that started a year ago!
The taxes have started in various generations of the taxes.
No, that's not very passionate, Twyla. I shouldn't even have asked.
No, I got a telephone survey just the other day about what you're saying. They were asking questions about, am I aware of Obamacare? Has it already been passed? Is it coming? Or is it dead? So what is behind asking that question to people on the phone?
I think what's behind that question is there are surveys out that are proving now that most of the public doesn't even know that Obamacare is happening. They don't know what the exchange is. They don't realize that they're individually mandated to buy health insurance or pay a fine. They don't know that there's 9 exceptions to the rule. They don't know that this is why their employers are dropping them, or this is why employers are choosing not to hire more employees. They are absolutely clueless, and so I think the survey is probably to get another gauge on, as we come into October 1st, which is when open enrollment begins, is to get a better idea of how many people really understand that we have a law and it's moving forward. Despite our organization objects to the law, we want it repealed. We plan to have it repealed, but we know it won't happen until after the president leaves office, but that's where it has to go if we want health freedom.
Are there any implications for someone like me? Now, I get health insurance from my wife because she's working at a place where I used to work, and I'm covered under her insurance. But I'm one of these people that I never go to a doctor, and when I need something done, I go to urgent care, and they've taken care of me, and I don't have a doctor that I go to all the time. In fact, I haven't had one since I was tiny. And does any of this mean anything to somebody like me that is, I go day to day and hope that I don't suddenly have a stroke and end up in the hospital, because I'm not really looking that far ahead?
Well, the law says that you are required to be covered, whether it's by government coverage or whether it's private insurance, or otherwise you have to pay a fine. And so that will be happening on your IRS form when you filed your taxes in 2015. They will ask how many months you have been covered. They will get information from your employer to say whether or not you have. If you're your own employer, you will be asked about your own coverage. You have to report that to the IRS. So employers are reporting to the IRS. The exchanges are reporting to the IRS. Employees are reporting. Insurers are reporting.
I'm okay as long as I'm covered with my wife's coverage. But what about, I hear, the billboards that say things like, you won't be able to choose your own doctor, and a lot of the choice questions. How does that affect someone like me that just goes to urgent care once in a blue moon?
Well, realizing that the law is 2,700 pages long and the regulations are over 20,000 pages long, the impact is going to be great, and how big it will be on an individual is hard to say. What we do know is that the health insurance exchanges, which are offering government coverage, it's not private insurance, but government coverage, they are doing what's called narrow network coverage. Narrow network, meaning that the network of doctors in the hospitals and the healthcare facilities that your coverage will cover are narrower. In other words, they are more limited. And so you may not be able to choose your own doctor. You may not be able to find your doctor if you had one.
Should we use the word rationing in here? Does that make
Right. Well, there are many different ways to ration healthcare costs, there's many different ways to ration healthcare, and the driving force in this is trying to contain costs. But actually, Obamacare is very expensive. As you might recall, the president wanted to make sure that the cost was under $1 trillion. But the last CBO, Congressional Budget Office, estimate was $2.6 trillion. And so the cost of it, the real cost of it, is actually growing, despite all the promises that this was going to, save healthcare costs. It was going to save healthcare. It was going to make it more available for people. The fact of the matter is, it's going to make healthcare more expensive, more unaffordable, and we think a lot of people will just choose to pay the tax rather than getting covered, because the cost of the coverage is going to be so high.
Where do we sign up for that tax?
Oh,
do we have to sign up for it?
You do not have to sign up for the tax.
Okay, they're just going to send you it in the mail?
How much
Wouldn't that be nice to just not sign up for the tax? We wouldn't be.
Well, can we sign up for one of the 9 exemptions?
Well, you can't sign up for one, but you can become one.
Okay. Can you? Because I think that's important. Am I correct by saying that IRS and all the government employees are exempt?
Okay, that's a different kind of exemption. They got their own privilege exemption because that's what the administration provided them, even though it's not in the law. So there are some exemptions that
So
have
it's not in the 20,000 pages?
No, it's not in the 27,000 pages. But there are 9 official exemptions. 4 exemptions from the mandate to purchase coverage, and 5 exemptions from the penalty if you don't. So for instance, so if you're a member of an Indian tribe, the Indian tribes are actually under the mandate to purchase coverage, but they are exempt from the penalty if they don't.
Okay, I get that.
So,
what's the next one? These are interesting.
Okay, well, there's one for health sharing organizations. So if instead of getting insurance, you choose to share your medical bills with a group, there are 3 of those organizations around the country, then you are exempt from the mandate. Now, despite being exempt, everybody has to file their exemption. And this is one way that the government is going to get everyone to enroll in the exchange, which is going to take all of our data and make it available to the IRS and 5 different agencies.
So that's the number one thing that you're going to tell us today, hopefully, is not to sign up for the exchange.
Right, not to sign up for the exchange.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about the VA and the Veterans Administration? Are they anywhere in those exemptions?
The Veterans Administration, no, they're not in the exemptions. The exemptions, like there's a hardship exemption, there's a religious exemption, which is very, very specific. There is another unaffordable
So what about
exemption.
someone that is using VA coverage right now?
Well, they are still under the mandate because everybody's under the mandate to have coverage, and they would have coverage, but they will be impacted by all other parts of the law, which are going to move us more towards healthcare rationing and limited access to services. And then HMOs are going to be in control of everything because they actually have said that traditional health insurance is now prohibited if you are over the age of 29. So managed care is getting a perfect bill. This is a perfect bill for them, a perfect law for them, because all the money is coming to the managed care organizations who will essentially be the contractors for the government to ration the care on their behalf.
Okay, I'm starting to follow it. We're coming up on the break here, Twyla, and maybe after the break I can ask you about I just heard it on the radio, that cash-only system that doctors are, it sounds like, hopefully more and more doctors, because it sounds like it makes sense.
Right.
And I don't know if that's part of the, what do I want to say? Well, I mean, people are going to be willing to pay the tax.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
And then go down that road of picking their own doctors.
Right, and it will be so much less expensive. And when we're all done, I will give you some examples of how inexpensive it could be, because the prices of today do not have to be the prices of tomorrow. And the prices scare people, but they shouldn't, because they can be so much
Okay,
less
so you
expensive.
got to stay tuned, everybody. We got Twyla Bray. She's going to be talking more on Obamacare because it's all coming right now. So the more we know, the more it can help us.